Thank you for turning to page 121. Today I'm excited to look at some products brought to us by the Cepheus engine folks at Stellagama Publishing. Specifically, I'm going to look at Cepheus Deluxe, but they also sent me another couple of books: Barbaric, Cepheus Atom, and Sword of Cepheus. I'm not going to be looking at these today. I'm just going to be looking at Cepheus Deluxe. But I want to thank the fine folks at Stellagama Publishing for sending me these for review. And I'm going to go ahead and give you my thoughts on the books themselves, the physical copies, and the contents of the books. So I also want to say, yay, today is my 200th published video. I'm stunned that I've made it this far. It seems like only 100 videos ago I was talking about my 100th video, and here I am at 200. So pretty amazed at myself that I've gotten this far. I hope to keep it going for many hundreds more. The other thing I want to mention is that I'm going to be at Adepticon in Schaumburg, Illinois this weekend. Tomorrow, in fact, the 26th. I'll be there lurking around the dealer room or the play areas. The convention opens from 10 a.m., the dealer room opens from 10 a.m., goes till 5 p.m. The game areas, for the most part, are open 24/7. So it's primarily a Warhammer 40K tournament, but there's Warhammer Fantasy, there's Magic the Gathering, there's Star Wars tabletop, Battletech, demos, and play. There is a spectator fee of $10, and I'm not sure what their policy is vis-a-vis the pandemic, but I can put a link to their website below so you can take a look at the stuff for yourself. One time I knew they were either requesting a proof of vaccination or negative test. I don't know if that's still so because Illinois has changed a lot of its rules. So I would recommend you go to the website, and it is $10 to just walk in and walk around. It's the first time they've done that. But I've been there, this will be my 10th one, and I can tell you it's worth it. It's a lot of fun just to go in and walk around, be a spectator, see the games. I've met a lot of great people there. I've got an opportunity to look at a lot of great games. I recommend it. I want to point out, I don't work for Adepticon. I have nothing to do with them other than having gone there for the last several years. But it's a good day. I go there with my sons, and we have a blast. So that's it. I hope to see you there. If you see me in the old Doc Savage t-shirt, this will be the one I'll be walking around in. If you see me, come on up, say hello. Be happy to talk to you. But back to the matter at hand, and that is Cepheus Deluxe by Stellagama Publishing, today on page 121. Cepheus Deluxe Science Fiction Role-Playing Game. This is published under the 2D6 open game licensing from Traveller, and a lot of people have voiced opinions that this is nothing but a Traveller Redux or Traveller Light. It's not. This was sent to me, as I said, by the fine folks at Stellagama Publishing. They asked me if I would read it over and give an honest review, and I determined before I read it, before I even said yes, I determined I would do an honest review. Imagine my delight that I could honestly review this favorably. So here's the front and the back of the book. Now this is a print on demand from DriveThruRPG, so I want to talk about that for a moment. They sent me physical copies of this. I actually had already downloaded the PDF. They had run a sale where this and the others that I showed were available for $4 for a little while. I grabbed that when I could and loved what I read prior to that. And then they offered to send me these print on demands, which, by the way, the PDF and print on demand of this right now on DriveThruRPG is $17. That's a steal. For one thing, I want to show the print on demand without showing the contents of the book. I want to show the spine. This is a nice book. It's sturdy. I'm impressed. I did not expect such fine quality for a print on demand. I really didn't. As this is a core rule book, my general rule is if it's a core rule book, I will buy the physical copy whenever I can. I find it much easier to flip through a core rule book than to go through scanning through a PDF. So as I said, I have this in both versions, and I use it in both versions, but I've enjoyed this so far. Now, also in full disclosure, I have not played a game of Cepheus Deluxe. However, I've been playing these types of games for over 40 years. So I can tell a good game from a bad game pretty quickly when I'm reading the rules. And I can tell you this game, this looks very playable. We're going to go ahead and take a look inside. For one thing, I want to say thank you for the print on demand. White pages. Again, these aging eyes, they get to use white pages. This was published in 2021. And I love how they did it. The layout is reminiscent of some of the older 2D6 games, if you will. I'm going to try to avoid using the word Traveler a lot in this one, because this does not deserve to be only ever compared to Traveler. The authors are Omer Golan-Joel, Richard Hazelwood, Josh Peters, and Robert L.S. Weaver. The editors and proofreaders are Richard Hazelwood, Josh Peters, and Neil Lukacs. The index was done by Robert L.S. Weaver. I love an index in a book. The interior artwork, Jeffrey Kazmierski, Ian Stead, love Ian's work, DGIM Studio, and Luigi Castellani. The cover art is footsearch.com. I'm not really sure what that means. Character worksheets by Anthony C. Hunter. Jerry Miller Jr. is one of the advisors, and then the layout was Omer Golan-Joel. This has a great old school flavor to it. And you have to remember, too, it was written to be published as a PDF. So the fact that it doesn't have color artwork, I'm going to forgive in this case. You know, I whine and cry a lot about lack of color artwork in current books. That being said, this is black and white, but I have to tell you, it's nice looking black and white artwork, very reminiscent. This kind of stuff could have been in an old Dragon magazine. This could have been in any of the old Traveler products. Very reminiscent of that. I like it a great deal. We're going to go ahead into the game itself. There's the table of contents. The introduction, they give the usual what is role-playing. I love Rule 0 right here. I know it's been stated in many books, but I'm going to restate it here. Rule 0, to facilitate play, the referee is the final arbiter for any game-related question. I live and die by Rule 0. I absolutely love that that's called out here. So the basic rules, these are some of the changes they did compared to Cepheus Lite, which is still available, is a free offering as of the making this video. And it's decent, but this is much better. This is a far superior product. We're going to go to the basic rules. The basic game mechanic is you're shooting for your number on 2d6, and you throw, for instance, you would throw athletics and strength modifiers. And if your target is 8 or greater, you would add your modifiers. So if I had athletics 1 and my strength gave me a 1, that would be 2. I would then throw the dice. If I threw a 6, 2 plus 6 is 8. That's 8 or greater. So it's 8 in this case. I would make my successful roll. It's not always strength 8, or it's not always an 8 to make your rule. The tasks can vary, just as in other games. It can go up or down. There are die modifiers for fatigue, and there's a throw for advantage here, which is familiar to those of us who are currently reading the current iteration. They're Boon and Bane dice from Mongoose, but they only have advantage dice here. They don't have Bane dice. And I actually like that, because I wasn't certain I was going to use Bane dice. There may be times I do, but I think I'd rather just put negative modifiers rather than actually let the dice decide something is important. But I like advantage dice. I lean toward players. If I have to choose between players and game mechanics, I'm always going to lean toward the players. I'd much rather people have time, even if I have to, or have a fun time rather, even if I have to break or throw out entire rules, I'll do it. So we come down to the skills. The skills are very similar to other games of this type. One thing that was interesting to me as I was reading through these and reading through the entire book, and I haven't put my finger on why. It might be the writing style, it might just be the way the skills work, but this had a very Champions RPG feel to me. If you've seen some of my other videos on my channel, you know that I am a big Champions fan. The hero system is one I like a great deal, and I couldn't escape the feel of Champions in this, and I mean that as a high compliment. I consider Champions some of the best written rule books out there, and to have this have the same flavor was a real treat for me. So this is a breakdown here of the skill list. You have admin, aircraft, animals, athletics. Now, this version, Cepheus Deluxe, has gone ahead and cut out some of the other skills that might be familiar. For instance, we don't have advocate. I get why they did that, and I agree with it, because there are going to be some skills from any game I play that I keep and others I throw away. This game is meant to be a solid, playable framework that you can add or subtract from as you play. So if you want advocate as a rule, stick it in. Jot down some rules about what it means, and boom, you're done. There are other rules in here that can double for those kinds of things. Administration arguably could also double for advocate. And then, of course, we do have the perennial favorite, Jack of all trades. And this reduced the unskilled penalty from -3 by each level. So if I have a Jack of all trades level 2, I only get a -1 for unskilled rolls. I love the way Jack of all trades is used. I think that's a great use of that skill. So here we go, the rest of the skills. Languages, you just get a set number of languages. No need to roll. It's not a separate skill. They just say, hey, you get some languages. I like that. There's a lot of this that is just driven by you, the player, what you want to be, how you want to be it, rather than the luck of the dice. Now, the luck of the dice absolutely figure in, but you get the opportunity to be a little more deterministic in what your character is and does. We have a chance to increase skills throughout this, so there is an actual progression. You have to expend experience point to gain skills. This also is very similar to Champions. And whenever I say that, by the way, it is never a slight. I love the hero system, and I don't think this is hero system, but I think it feels a lot like it. So we come here, we've got the standard characteristics: strength, dexterity, endurance, intelligence, education, and social standing. Pretty familiar to anybody who's played any of this kind of game before. And you can determine it. You can roll your 2d6 if you want, and you can sign in any order. Or you can just kind of pick and choose them. It really is up to the DM. So it's really up to you how you want to play this. You can assign the following array of the 6 characteristics any order you want: 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you just take those numbers, plug them in where you want, boom, there's your character. Now, I would do a little bit more customizing with this. I might make it, you throw a die 5, or you get 5 points plus a die 6 or something. But I absolutely see where they're going. They want quick characters where you can decide that, hey, I want to be the really strong guy, so I'm going to put my 10 in the strength. I get that. You get your basic homeworld skills, and then you choose your career. Very familiar again. The career runs through. It's a lot cleaner, a lot sleeker than in other games that are out there, but it is completely translatable to other 2d6 games that are out there, whatever generation they are. I have some of the Traveler stuff going all the way back to 1977. I could take some of that stuff, plug these characters into it, and play it no problem. This is very, very well done as far as what it wanted to accomplish, which was a rules lighter version of a 2d6 space game. And if that's what you set out to do, mission accomplished. I think this is very well done. Here we get the career tables. Again, familiar for 2d6 players. We have the agent, the army, belter, colonist. I like colonist, by the way. That's a neat one. Elite, marine, merchant, navy, pirate, rogue, scholar, scout, and then a nice piece of artwork. The other skill that you can have later in the book, it would be a scion. And we have the familiar event pages. We have the familiar mustering out benefits. Here's life events, unusual events, mustering out events, how you muster out of your career. Can you change careers? Go from this one to that one. How you age. Your aging begins at 34. Again, if you've seen my other videos on this kind of topic, you'll know I don't agree with 34. I know that when I was 34, I was capable of doing a lot of the stuff I could do when I was in my 20s, and I noticed the drop-off personally more around 45. So maybe that's just me, I don't know, but I push this number out a little bit when I do character generation, especially in the future when medicine is better and more available and better understood, nutrition, things like that. I feel that 34 is a little young to be making people worry about aging crises. Okay, coming down to you can go to prison in character generation if that really fits you. Prison is also something that I feel could absolutely fit into a game, and I would use it more as a game event or situation as opposed to something during character generation. I don't like the idea of an event sending somebody to prison during character generation unless they want to do that. Okay, stamina and lifeblood. Wait, we're not taking points off of stats? No, we're not. We don't suffer debilitating attacks as far as our stats are concerned in this game. You get stamina and lifeblood. So our stamina is our endurance characteristic, and that's the one that just lets you shrug off anything. So if I have an endurance of 7, and I also get to add my athletics skill. So example, a character with an endurance 7 and athletics 1 has a stamina of 8. The character's lifeblood represents the resistance to injury. These are your actual blood hit points. It's equal to twice your stamina. So this character would have a stamina of 8 and a lifeblood of 16. Stamina would be best considered when the hero is just shrugging off. They punch somebody and they've hurt their hand and they shake it off. Maybe they took a point of stamina damage then. So that's nothing. They shrug that off. Within 10 minutes, you get it back in the game. Lifeblood is when they've had, an explosion, seriously wound their arm. Think John McClane toward the end of Die Hard when he's walking around. He can barely walk because of all the cuts to his feet and various wounds he's suffered throughout the movie. That would be a good example of somebody who is very low at that point on their lifeblood. By the way, I want to point out the artwork here. This could fit in any 50s or 60s comic book as far as I'm concerned, and I mean that as high praise. This looks like it was done by Wally Wood or Carmine Infantino, Kurt Swan, any of the great artists of that era. And that, for me, again, is always high praise. I'm a big fan of that artwork. So coming back to this, you've got your hit points, if you will, because that's what they are. But they're broken into 2 categories. As I said, the one is the stamina, which is the temporary injury, and then the lifeblood, which is the more serious one. When you get down to 0 in both, you have suffered a mortal wound. A mortal wound is, you get one of those, and when you have a mortal wound, if you don't have trauma surgery within the hour, it's new character time. And of course, depending on the situation, if you want your character to if there's a situation where the whole ship blows up, you don't bother going through that, the character's just dead. They do have the optional rule for Iron Man, where you can have your character, if you're old school, hardcore, you want the character to possibly die during character generation, which is part of the fun of some of the older stuff, then you can. So I thought that was kind of neat they included that. And now we come down to traits. These are traits, these are basically skills, but there are more things that you would pick up as you go. So they're just skill-related traits. So we have acrobat, animal affinity, awareness, born athlete, combat medic, explosive expert, ghost, hacker, hunter, juice, which means you can push a piece of technology. That's an interesting one. I like that one. Legal eagle. So there we don't have advocate, but we do have legal eagle trait. Machine whisperer. And then you need prerequisites for some of these. So machine whisperer is jack of all trades 1. Legal eagle, prerequisites admin 1. Master tracker, merchant, palm greaser, parkour, proper etiquette, rescue specialist, runner, scientist, sleight of hand, smuggler, surgeon, thief, throwing arm, and tradecraft. So pretty neat. I like it. You can dial in your character even more, not just based on skills. We get these traits as well. You have combat traits, crack shot, defeat armor, gunslinger, rapid reaction, signature weapon, sniper, spray and pray. And then the melee combat traits are armor breaker, backstab, blind fighting, and grappler. So a lot of these are self-explanatory. I like it. I like the idea that the traits, we have more general combat traits here. I'm not going to read each of these off. Vehicle and spacecraft traits. So you can make your character how you want to make him. Then we have some other traits. So you could be a diplomat. Jean-Luc Picard in Star Trek Next Generation. He's got admin, yes, but he's also got diplomat. He's one of the Federation's better diplomats. I love that. Nice artwork. I like it. Now we go into the tech levels. Tech level, they have 17 ranks going from 0 to 16. So 16 is the top out high level tech level. Again, a lot of this is familiar. Here's a breakdown of the tech level table itself. We have living expenses, personal armor. There's the protection that the armor gives you. The way the armor works is if I'm wearing a heavy duster and I get shot by a gun, and the gun does D6 damage, and the guy shooting me throws a 4 on the D6, my duster armor takes out 3, so I only suffer 1 wound. And that wound would come off of my stamina first, and then my lifeblood later. One thing I'm going to go back to before I go much further, and that's going to be on lifeblood and stamina. They are based strictly on endurance. And I want to say, and I meant to put this in earlier, so my apologies if I'm going back a little bit. This makes endurance and athletics. Endurance becomes a super stat, and athletics becomes a must-have skill. Because let's face it, we're all role players. We're going to do whatever we can to boost our characters' hit points. A way to get around this, and something I'm considering doing, would be either let a character pick a different physical stat, so their strength or dexterity, to represent their base point. So a strength of 9 would equal 9 stamina and 18 lifeblood, or allow perhaps a mix of 2. So instead of using one of the physical traits, I add 2 together. So I take endurance and dexterity. I take the highest of the first as my stamina. So my dexterity is a 9, and my endurance is an 8. I go ahead and I take a 9 for my stamina, and then my lifeblood is the 8 and the 9 combined and becomes a 17. Just a couple of options there. I don't like when a game dials in on one stat and makes it a super stat in that regard. Now, all that being said, I understand why they did it. Strength and dexterity are also important in melee and shooting combat. So if I'm using those and I'm bumping those way up and I'm basing my hit points on those, I can be creating a super character who's really tough in combat and has way more hit points. So I understand why stamina was chosen. Or I'm sorry, I understand why endurance was chosen for the basis of stamina and endurance. It's just that I would like to see a way around it being a super stat. That's all. So going back to where we were. Okay, personal armor. And we go to cybernetics. I like cybernetics in science fiction gaming. I think they have a place. They can take over a science fiction game, so you have to be careful with them. But they definitely have a place. I like some of the stuff that you can opt into here, and the credit values are given. This is nice. Exploration and personal equipment given out here by the cost and the tech level. This is just cool. And then we get down, they even have a hammock. You can buy a hammock in this game. I love that. I love tiny little stuff like that. It's great. This is a game that doesn't want to bog you down in minutia, but wants you to basically just kind of get going with the whole thing. That guy looks like Wally Wood drew it. And again, that's a compliment from me. When you are playing a game, it's easy to get bogged down in the details, especially for the game master, and that becomes one of the traps of a lot of games. You get so tied down in D&D, for instance, you get so tied down sometimes with endurance that it actually takes away from the gameplay. You're so worried that this guy's carrying 3 swords strapped to his body that you're not really paying attention to the actual gameplay. Well, I agree about the 3 swords. Just tell the guy he can't do it. Don't bury him in statistics about how much he's carrying and how cumbersome it is and things like that. Common sense. And that's what this game is based on. Common sense. We want to play. We want the game to move forward. We want to have fun. We don't want to worry about minutia that's going to slow the game down. I'm a big fan of that. That's my DM style. It always has been. I want the players to have fun. Generally, when we play, I have about 3 hours to get through an entire scenario. During those 3 hours, I want my players to be active and having fun, not worrying that they're carrying too many gold pieces, or in this case, have just too much physical stuff on their body. Don't get me wrong; I don't let them get away with murder, but we deal more with common sense than anything else, and just move along. So here we go. we're over to robots, which are nicely called out here. And then they have build points for them, modifications and upgrades. Vehicles, very well called out here. This is so much fun. I'm sorry, I'm just geeking out about the artwork. Every time I see this, I flash back to some of the old comic books. If you follow my channel for a while, you know I'm a big comic book geek too. And I just like artwork like that. Plus, it's got a nice Traveler aesthetic to it. And I know this isn't Traveler. I don't care. It brings up that aesthetic. This is so nice. I enjoyed this book a great deal. Oh, I skipped one of the best parts. What am I doing here? Weapons. How can I go past weapons? I'm geeking out on the artwork. I forgot the weapons. Here we go. Here are the melee weapons that you have. Now you've got your ubiquitous vibroblades. I love vibroblades. Why not? Stun pistols. Stun prod. Or not stun pistol. Stun prod in this case. And then we go to projectile weapons. There's where your stun pistol will be. Your Gauss rifle. I'm a big Gauss fan. Gyrojet pistol. Always cool. Heavy. These are energy weapons. Now we get to the heavy weapons. There's some really nice stuff in here. And even if you're not going to play this particular game, there's so much stuff in here you could mine for other games. This is absolutely worth owning just to have it in your library, to just pull stuff out and say, okay, I'm going to use this in my Star Frontiers game or Alternity or whatever your particular area of interest is. This game can offer a lot to improve that. Here we go to environmental hazards, disease and poisons, extreme temperatures, fire, falling, starvation, dehydration, radiation, vacuum exposure. All important in a space game. Personal and vehicle combat. It goes on to talk about the personal combat. This game uses just an additional initiative system where you're basically the highest initiative goes first. You get modifiers for your intelligence or tactics. There's a couple of different ways that they show you can use initiative, surprise rounds, and things like that. Very familiar for a 2-6 game, but very effective. I like a dex-based initiative or a die roll-based initiative that's modified by dex, and that's what this is. So what actions you can do? You can do one action and one attack in a round. A round is 6 seconds long. So for instance, I could do an attack, a charge, inspire someone, I could move, I could overwatch, or other actions such as opening a door, drawing a weapon, loading a weapon. So I can take my action to load my weapon, and then at the same segment I can fire the weapon. So that's pretty cool. I like that. Ranged combat, very familiar. Again, we have different penalties if the person's behind cover, if they have a weapon-proof shield, dark light, things like that. If you have a high dexterity, you get bonuses. You have levels in the weapon, you get bonuses. You can throw weapons, grenades. Damage and healing is called out here. Very standard kind of stuff. Once you get through your stamina, you're into your lifeblood. You're suffering a DM of -1 while you're at half or greater in your lifeblood, but you're a DM -2 if you're below half, and you have to roll an endurance check of 8 or greater or fall unconscious for 1-6 rounds. So that's pretty cool. They also have an optional rule for heroes versus grunts, where basically you can just take the guy out with one shot, a la Austin Powers' father in the third Austin Powers movie, where he tells the one guy, you don't even have a name tag, just lay down. You can just kind of blow through all the ratings and get to the bad guy. So just healing and medical care, you better get, if you have a mortal wound on you, you better get there quick. Here's the table that tells you exactly what you can and can't do at various stages of your health. So very well thought out. We have an example of personal combat here. I think it's very well considered personal combat. Going to my point on super stats, you have endurance of 9, 7, 7, and 10. So again, just good character building means that you're going to throw your endurance there. At sacrifice a little bit of the physical stats and some of the mental and social. So kind of a thing that I don't like games that end up with super stats. I don't like when a game has that mechanic. There are ways around it. I don't mean to say I don't like the game. I do like the game. Vehicle combat. Very standard, very similar to the personal combat, but they give you some rules for high-speed chases, for shooting a vehicle, for getting hit by a vehicle, run into, neat art. And then they give you a combat example. And now we come to psionics. Psionics are very straightforward in this game and very powerful. Again, if you've watched some of my other videos, you know my feelings on psionics. I like them. They're a little powerful to give to player characters, although there are times when the story says, yes, do it. There are other times that just says, no, that's going to be too much. It'll overshadow the other characters. That's really up to you, your story, and your gameplay, but they're great for non-player characters. Just be aware, this can make them really tough. Some really nice skills called out here. Your psi level that you have to be. So the Babylon 5, where you're a P10 or a P12, would apply here perfectly. So if I'm a P1, I have sense, but if I get up to P8, psi 8, I can choke somebody, a la the force choke. I can teleport. A lot of good stuff you can do. Psionics are a very important part in my Traveler gaming, as well as my other space gaming. Just, I don't like them to be the be-all and end-all. Come down to Starship operations. Again, very familiar, but very well called out. Slimmed down, streamlined, sleek. All good words here. This scenario that especially the GM can bog down in setting up the game. Trade and smuggling. Also another place you can bog down. These are very clean, very well called out. Just a lot of thought went into this. You can see it straight through. A lot of what they were trying to build, they built. It is a great framework game. You can play this entire game for years straight out of what's in this book, and you could have a lot of fun for a long, long time. Ship design and construction, there you go. You can make your ships. They go up to about 3,000 tons. After that, they don't really have it. You get your Starship Bridge, your electronics, your weapons, and then I'm going to get to the Starship Combat. Starship Design Example. Let's get to the combat. Here's the Space Combat. They use position. There are no range bands here, and I realize this is not a tabletop game, so this is it's very cinematic, like some other space games choose to go, and I agree with it, because this is not going to be a situation where you're going to be having your ships fight each other all night. So rather than go by any kind of range band status or how far I am away, it's really by assuming that you're within your weapon range, or if you're not, there's a story reason why. And then it's based on essentially dexterity. So or not dexterity, but your initiative roll, which can be modified by your pilot skill and your dex die modifier, and your ship's maneuver, drive, thrust number. So you can get a pretty high number. And if I'm higher than you, I get to attack you, and I get all my bonuses. If you're on a lower position, you are -3 to attack me, but if your pilot is Jack of all trades, I would allow that to be offset. So it's still kind of neat that everybody can fight everybody, and you do suffer a little bit of penalty for being the slowest guy out there, but it's pretty sweet, given what these weapons can do and how quickly they can do them to a ship, especially a ship a Traveler's generally going to be in. It's not a good idea to get in a lot of shooting combats anyway, so I'm just fine with it. The Starship damage, I'm fine with how this is done. The internal hit descriptions are very clean. They're not going to bog you down. You're not going to lose half an hour arguing about where this decompressed versus where it didn't. It's just going to keep the game going. And there we go. Space Combat Example. A little bit of the old piracy. Gotta like it. Okay. A lot of stuff on the Space Combat. Can be a very important part of any game set in a space setting. And we're looking at different sample ships now that I'm blowing through, because I was so busy thinking about something else that I'm blowing through the starships. So here we have all our Starship examples. Very sleek, very clean, and very familiar designs. Starship encounters for in your system. I love that guy's eating what appears to be a piece of pizza. I'm not sure what that is, but it looks like pizza. And then world creation. World creation, pretty familiar to anybody who has played these types of games. You get your set of numbers, what they mean, but there's enough in here that has some subtleties and some variants that, again, if you're just looking to add something to your library, I recommend this book for that as well. So we're going past the world creation, the law level. I'm not going to get bogged down a ton in this because I know this video is already going a little long. So here we go, example of world creation, which is pretty sweet. Social encounters, so when you meet those NPCs, how do they respond to you? So charts for that. I like that. This is a great way for DM to just kind of whip up a game. I've sat with tables like this, thrown the numbers, and then had a game come up out of the numbers that was nothing I ever even considered doing. So these can actually write a game for you. Business contact tables, very cool idea. Here we go. And xenofauna encounters, so aliens. So what kind of space aliens are you meeting? I want to point out too that Cepheus Deluxe does have their own universe, their own campaign setting called These Stars Are Ours. And you can actually play this set custom to that, or if you are playing your own custom world or some other game, this stuff will translate very well to it. These Stars Are Ours. Ours is also available on DriveThruRPG as a PDF download or print on demand. So referee advice. I always like a little ref advice. I like reading those. I've been doing this for a long, long time. I have never stopped learning, and my players have never stopped surprising me. So we have some adventure seeds. I like having a nice adventure seed, give you an idea of just some nice adventure hooks if you're coming up with a game on short notice. Again, just as a library resource, this guy is very useful. And then we come to Appendix A, Sources of Inspiration. I like this. Too many games now are getting away from where some of their source material is. And I like that this one kind of goes back and does that. So we get such things, literature, James Corey, Robert Heinlein, Barry Longyear, Larry Niven, a personal favorite of mine, and so on. We come to film, Aliens and its sequels, Enemy Mine, Event Horizon, Outland, Serenity. Outland's, by the way, quality movie starring Sean Connery. Television, Andromeda, Babylon 5, Dark Skies, Firefly, Love, Death, and Robots. I'm not familiar with that one. New Battlestar Galactica, one of the best series ever made. Space Above and Beyond, and The Expanse, which I'm currently enjoying. Interesting that not listed here are the words Star Trek or Star Wars. Star Trek and Star Wars, generally, the tech is way too high for this level of game. But that being said, Mos Eisley is still a good example of a downport in a space game. So there are things to take away from it. And then we get some video game stuff also. I'm not much of a video gamer anymore, but there's some stuff you can play that'll have the same flavor. And then we have the Universal World Profile, Cheating Death by Cyborg Conversion. That's cool. Aliens, how you want to make them, how you want them to be in your game. I'm sure that there are some that are official for These Stars Are Ours. The Open Gaming License, of course. And then the index. I love an index in a book. I never consider an index that's put together well to be a waste of space. And then we come all the way to the back, and there are some character sheets. And there we go, some world building stuff. So all in all, I give this guy an A+. I am hugely impressed by this book. There are a few minor typos here and there. Oh well. If I can forgive it in other games, I can certainly forgive it here. I wholeheartedly endorse this game. I recommend it, even if you're just going to put it on your shelf as a resource material. I am going to be playing this, definitely. My sons don't know it, but they'll be joining me in a game of Cepheus Deluxe before very long. And then I may introduce this as a game at our table for all of our players. So I do recommend it. I want to thank again the fine folks at Stellagama Publishing who gave me this book. I'm delighted that I was able to honestly review it and say that I really enjoyed it. I look forward to taking a look at the other books that you sent me. And I thank you again. And I thank you for your time. And if you've made it this far, I thank you for your endurance, which must be pretty high. I just want to remind everybody of the Patreon that I've got going. Try to keep the channel going and growing. If you can help out, that would be wonderful. And that's all I've got today from page 121. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.